Hello YouTube. I made this jewelry hanger, and I'd like to quickly show how I did it and what tools did I use, and also things that worked and things that worked less. So about the design, it's a present for a friend. She wanted some creative jewelry hanger organizer, and this is the idea that I came up with. So it has strings for your dangling hooks and hoops, and it also has this board for studs. It's 6 mil hole with incision, and on the back I also routed some wells here. This way you don't need to, not sure what's the proper name for the studs. It has that plug that locks it in place. Because the plywood is 4 mil thick, one would have had to pull the plug all the way out to the edge to hang it, but because we have wells here, basically it's recessed 2 millimeters in, then you would use your earring normally. You just take it. Yeah, so this is your earring with plug in the normal position, and then you'll just put it in and hang it. So we'll see how it works in practice, how useful it is. It's very sturdy, all glued up, and my only concern is that the stud's gonna stick out too much, particularly at the end where the branch here is small. So what do we have here? It's a piece of lilac. These are 2 pieces of plum. These are all clippings from our garden from the last year. I had to go through the pile to find a couple of good ones. So again, I went through the pile to find a couple of dry ones without any signs of rot. Peeled off the bark, sanded it. For sanding, I went from 80 to remove that coarse bark, then 120, 180, 240, 400, and eventually 1200. So some videos say you don't need to do beyond 120 because when you lacquer, you won't see the difference. That's not my experience. I suggest go at least 400 if you want that really silky smooth finish. And when you go to 1200 afterwards, it really kind of polishes the wood, kind of buffs it, and then you see all the scratches that you missed with your sanding. So it's basically like a way to see where you need to resand a bit more. For the joinery here, let me remove the earrings. For the joinery here, so I recently got myself a dowel plate and I wasn't sure when I'm going to use it, so but this is where it came useful. So what I did, in the main branch I drilled 15 mil deep hole, 15 mil wide holes with the regular Fosna bit, and to match the sticks I wanted the sticks to be in this free form, like the natural form as they grew, just debarked. But the ends, I roughly rounded them to 16 millimeters. And then I punched them through the doweling plate to 15 mils, and just the ends, about 15 millimeter deep. And the ends became perfectly round. So if you look at the joints here, they absolutely spotless. They're very tight. They go in perfectly. And they're actually so tight that when I started to glue up, I had to bang them in with a mallet. That so tight the joint was. So I'm really happy with this idea. So if you want to join 2 irregular pieces of wood together, you can normalize the ends to fit into the holes and it goes. So we had the sticks now, and now moving to this sail thing for studs hanging. So this is for 4 millimeter thick marine plywood, And originally I did a mold from a cardboard, and my first attempt was to make it on the scroll saw. This is my basic scroll saw. These are the basic ones. They all look the same and work the same, more or less. Doesn't matter if you buy Ryobi or Zito or Sherwood or Carbotech. The specs difference is minimal. So it works fine for regular cut. So I did the cut, sanded the edges. When I drilled the holes using my PDB-40 trusted drill press, and I have small Makita router with a plunge base, and I did those recessions here, which worked fine. But and it was matching the piece. The problem was that I need to do those incisions to go down. This small the incision drops here, and to do that, I found the best way to do that is to use a spiral cutting blade on a scroll saw. And I did a couple of tests and it worked fine. The problem is I had to do it for 30 holes here. And this saw is not really suitable for inside cuts, where those cuts where you basically need to release one end of the blade, pull it through the hole, fasten the blade, do the cut, rinse, repeat. Now here you need to do the Allen key here. You need to remove this head. You need to pull your piece through the put your blade through the piece, and then you need to attach the head. And in the meanwhile, it has the similar kind of hook at the end. It falls off the hook and it's all like rattling, and you're trying to fix it up, and the meanwhile the blade is playing around in your hole, kind of thrashing the edges of the piece. So I thought I can do it. Probably it would have taken me, I don't know, several hours of very tedious work and lots of patience. But you know, if I had a better scroll saw which has like a clamping setup for blades, but just, you know, you leave the tension, undo the clamp, leave the arm, slide your piece through the blade, fasten, do the cut, undo and repeat. That would have been much quicker, but I don't have that saw, and even if I were to order it, it wouldn't get on time. I was a bit time pressured, and I would have end up with 2 scroll saws that I rarely use. But anyhow, my friend said, you know, I have a laser cutter, so why don't you come over and we just cut it. So I traced this piece, took a photo, traced it in Inkscape, produced a PDF and sent it to him. He sent it to a laser cutter. After a couple of attempts, we had a piece with properly cut with holes and incisions. So I only had to redo the recessions again on the router, and we were done. That piece didn't feel personal compared to the one I made by hand, so it felt a bit foreign. But after spending half an hour sanding all the edges, to removing the char, like the burns, yeah, I reconnected with it again, so it feels personal. Now the next tricky part, as you can see, it has those lips on this side and the other side, sort of mortises, right, to go in. And I needed to cut the slots in the stick, which is, as you can see, is anything but straight. I needed to cut a straight groove to insert this tenon in. Maybe it's mortise, I get confused between mortise and tenons. Anyhow, so I have this, again, small router, which I found a way by clamping the battery to a wood, actually create like a tiny router table. And I have this guard, like a fence for the router table. And then I took a piece of straight plywood and I clamped this thing to it, so I would have a straight edge to reference against. And I put it on the router and started to work. So you need basically to plunge in the middle and then go left and right again. And it mostly worked well from one side, but when I was moving backwards, the thing had rotated a bit and I had a slip here. So Fortunately, it's at the back, and I filled it with dust, with wood dust and super glue, and polished it so it's not visible, but it's there. Same here, as you can see towards the end. The bit had, my piece had rotated a bit in my hands, and the bit started to deviate away from the straight line. But so yeah, more practice needed into making straight grooves in natural formed sticks. But for the first attempt, I think it's good enough. Now the thread, I obviously drilled the holes. It's 1.5 mil holes, and again, this project was a bit rushed in, and I was looking for a thread. Eventually, I found a leather sewing, heavily waxed thread, which is about 1 mil thick, which is perfect because I wanted a natural thread that wouldn't frail, it wouldn't collect dust. So compared to the macrame thread that I used to hang it, you see it has this like hairs dangling, and this one is perfectly smooth. No any fringes or hairs on it. But the main challenge was how to tie it, because being waxed, you cannot glue it in. So ideally, I would have, glued it to the back here, and then pass it through the holes, and then I would just saturate the thread with super glue, pull it into the hole, hold it for a couple of seconds, and it will stay there. Then I would have cut the ends and push the ends inside the hole. Nice and easy, very lean, very sleek. Here it wouldn't work, so what I did, I actually took the end of the thread, used the iron and paper towels to reduce the amount of wax, then so that I could glue the end of the thread to the bead, and then I threaded all the thing left right all the way up, so you can see these things here, like big stitches. Let's call it a design feature. And yes, and here I just looped it and tied the knot, and then I heat it up a bit with the candle to let the wax melt, so the threads of different loops will bond together. Here was a tricky one. Basically, you see it starts just from the stick with nothing on the other end, so it was tricky. I had to take a small pin, kind of bang it in together with the end of the wax thread, which was dewaxed, and then I took a syringe. I filled it with wood glue and actually injected a bit of a wood glue inside the hole to lock the thread in the hole. Yeah, and here it's simple loop. Again, sort of the design feature. And again, on the back it looks less pretty, but now one sees it. And I heat it up again with the wax candle for the threads to melt, so it wouldn't go anywhere. Final element is the hanging part. So I drilled, this is 3 mil, have it here, this is 3 millimeter macrame cord. Yep, almost natural. Now I drilled 4 millimeter holes all the way through, and then a 6 millimeter holes halfway in, and so I can pull the thread through, tie a knot, cut the knot short, pulled it into the 6 mil part, and it's invisible. You don't see the knot when you look at the piece. And a final thing is the hanger. This is the small knob here. What it does is actually it allows you to hide the screw that the piece is hanging on the wall. So usually would have a screw sticking out, and then you hang your piece, and because it's relatively heavy, you have to put some serious screw, probably a wall anchor if you go into drywall, and then it's a big chunk on something on the wall that draws your attention. So I was looking for a way to hide it, and the idea is basically I took a cookie of the branch, drilled a 25 mil hole with the Forstner build halfway in, and 2 holes to pass the thread through. And imagine this is the screw. Basically, you hang it on the screw on the screw, and then you put the cover on, and it all sits nice and tightly because there's quite a difference between like these holes are in the middle. It will actually pull this cap all the way to the wall, and instead of having your nice beautiful piece hanging on a ugly screw with the potentially metal anchor on the drywall, all you'll see is a little knob here, and down from that knob will go the piece. So it all looks nice, organic, and also secures it in a way. It prevents, like, the tension here pushes the screw all the way down to the bottom of the this knob here, and it makes it more secure so it won't slide off the screw. I did it in the past with some stars. Same idea. You see the 2 holes here. Yeah, and it worked really great. You kind of you put it on that screw, it stays there. Even if you knock the piece, it won't fly off. Yeah, so here it is. So again, what I used is a drill press to drill all the holes. Lots of holes here, large and small. My router, the dowel plate for the sticks to go tight into the holes, the plunge base to do the recesses, scroll saw, not so much though, eventually, and of course my trusty crosscut, my Traxxo crosscut jig. Yeah, it's been done lots of cutting in the years that I built it. Well, I hope you find it entertaining, and yeah, I'm curious to see how this design works in practice in terms of usability. Cheers.